The Zonar Empire had explored thousands of star systems, captured hundreds of enemy ships, and studied every kind of war machine ever built. But today, their scanners found something they had never seen before. A giant object drifted in the empty dark. No lights, no heat, no transmissions. Only a massive metal body, silent like a dead world. Commander Vrax stood on the bridge of his vessel, watching the strange shape appear on his holomap. The scanner officer's hands shook as he spoke. "Commander, it looks human." Vrax frowned. Humans were known in the galaxy, but their ships were usually small, simple, and noisy. They did not build anything this big, this cold, this dangerous looking. "Is there any movement?" Vrax asked. "None. It is completely silent." The crew exchanged nervous looks. A dead ship this size meant a huge war. But there were no signs of battle. No burns, no missing pieces. The vessel floated untouched, like it had been placed there on purpose. Vrax made his decision. "Prepare a boarding team." His officers hesitated. "Commander, are you sure? Something feels wrong." "Yes," Vrax said, trying to control his own unease. "If humans left this here, we must know why." The Zonar shuttle approached the dark battleship. The closer they came, the more unnatural it felt. The hull was covered in strange markings, human symbols, warnings, numbers, and long scratches as if something strong had tried to enter the ship. When they connected to an airlock, the hatch opened without a sound. Inside, the hallway was pitch black. Their lights cut through the darkness, revealing metal walls bent, scraped, and burned. "It looks attacked," an officer whispered. Vrax disagreed. "No. This looks like something tried to escape from inside." Their footsteps echoed through the long passage. Everything smelled old, cold, and untouched for years. There were no bodies, no signs of life, no signs of crew, only silence. The deeper they went, the stronger the sense of danger grew. The boarding team entered the first chamber. The lights flickered as their boots touched the ground. The room was wide, with consoles surrounding a central platform. Dust floated in the air. A faint hum vibrated through the floor. "Something is still alive in this ship," Vrax said. "Commander, the ship is supposed to be dead," his officer replied. But Vrax knew the truth. Dead things did not hum. They activated their scanning tools. The moment the scanner beam touched the metal, every device in the room froze. Not malfunction. Not a technical issue. Something was blocking them. "What is happening?" Vrax demanded. "Commander, our tools are locking up. It's like the ship is trying to stop the scan." The floor shook lightly. Once, like a heartbeat. The lights flickered again, brighter this time. Then a deep voice, cold, metallic, and human, came from the walls. "Unauthorized life signs detected." The crew panicked, raising weapons and looking in every direction. "Who said that?" an officer shouted. But the voice did not answer. Instead, the heavy doors behind them slammed shut, trapping them inside. Vrax forced his team forward. They entered the next hallway, where strange claw marks covered the metal. Something powerful had moved through here long ago. Or maybe it was still here. Finally, they reached a large chamber filled with sealed pods standing in perfect rows. Each pod held a tall human armor suit. Dark metal, thick plates, glowing visors. These suits were unlike anything the Zonar Empire had seen. Not simple. Not weak. They looked like warriors made of steel. Inscribed on the wall was a human message. "For humanity's last stand." Vrax felt a chill crawl up his spine. "What does this mean?" his officer whispered. Before Vrax could answer, a small red light blinked on one of the pods. The armor inside twitched. Just a small movement, but enough to terrify everyone. "Commander, these suits still have power," an officer cried. "No," Vrax said. "These are not suits." He placed his hand on the glass of the nearest pod. "They look alive." The ground rumbled again. That on a side console, a cracked data screen lit up. A video played automatically. A human officer appeared, dirty, injured, breathing hard. His eyes were wild with fear. "If you are watching this," the man whispered, "turn back. Leave this ship." Do not explore further. Behind him, something heavy walked in the shadows. The human swallowed and continued. This vessel, it was built for a war we never wanted. It carries a guardian that destroys anything not human. The screen glitched. The man looked over his shoulder. He whispered one last sentence. Run, before it wakes up. The recording ended. The room fell silent. Then they heard it. Thud. A deep, slow footstep from somewhere inside the ship. Thud. Closer. The air grew colder. Vrax whispered. Everyone stay still. But the footsteps did not stop. Something enormous, something ancient, something built by humans, was waking up, and it had sensed them. The footsteps did not stop. They echoed through the long metal corridors of the silent battleship, steady and slow, as if something huge had just awakened from a long sleep. Commander Vrax and his team stood frozen in the chamber of armor pods. Nobody dared to breathe loudly. The only sound was the heavy thud. Thud. Thud growing closer. Commander, one officer whispered. Something is coming for us. Vrax raised a hand, signaling silence. His eyes moved toward the dark hallway ahead. The sound came from there, deep, metallic, and powerful. It knows we are here, Vrax said quietly. Another officer shook his head. But why? This ship was dead. No, Vrax answered. It was sleeping. Suddenly, the ship's old ceiling lights flickered to life, one by one. Not bright, but alive enough to cast long shadows across the floor. This whole time, the ship had been like a giant beast pretending to be dead, waiting. Their scanners finally restarted, blinking rapidly. Commander, the technician yelled. There is energy moving through the ship. Strong energy. It is going to every deck. How strong? Vrax asked. Stronger than anything we've seen in human ships. That sentence made Vrax feel something unfamiliar. Fear. The team moved out of the pod room, trying to keep their steps quiet. The hallway was long, filled with claw marks, strange metal burns, and walls that seemed almost alive. They stopped at another chamber. Inside, the walls were covered in human writing. Warnings, instructions, strange diagrams. One message stood out. If you are not human, do not proceed. What kind of ship is this? An officer asked. Vrax walked closer to the writing. His hand hovered over it, not touching. The letters looked desperate, like they were written in a hurry. This ship was built for war, Vrax said. A war humans expected to lose. But they didn't lose, the officer replied quietly. No, Vrax said. It seems they won. In a way the galaxy doesn't understand. A small device sat on a metal table. Black, cracked, and old. Vrax activated it. Another recording played. This time, the human in the message looked calmer but serious. To any species that finds this ship, understand this. This vessel holds a guardian. It is not a machine. It is a protector created to stop invaders. The human leaned closer to the screen. If it senses your presence, it will not stop. It will hunt until the threat is gone. The recording ended. The room felt colder. One of Vrax's officers swallowed hard. Commander, we need to abort. This is not worth the risk. But Vrax shook his head. No, we must know what humans were capable of. Their weakness was always their small ships. But this is something else. Just then, thud. The sound came again. Then another. Closer. Heavier. The walls vibrated with each step. The team turned their lights toward the hallway, but all they saw was darkness. Something moved far inside it, slow, controlled, and huge. Commander, an officer whispered. We cannot fight this. We are not here to fight, Vrax said. We only observe. But he knew that was a lie. The moment they came aboard, they had stopped being observers. The ship had marked them as intruders. Vrax led the team toward a higher deck, where they hoped to find the main control system. The stairs creaked under their boots. Dust rose with every step. At the top, they found a narrow corridor leading to a wide room filled with human consoles, screens, and chairs. It looked like a command center. Strangely, this room was clean. No claw marks, no damage. Why is this place untouched? An officer asked. Vrax stepped forward. Because something important is here. They spread out and searched. One screen suddenly lit up. A human symbol appeared, a warning icon. Then text. Guardian activation. 72%. Foreign presence detected. All exits sealed. The crew's eyes widened. Commander, this Guardian, it is waking up because of us. Vrax stared at the words. No, it is waking up because this ship is designed to protect humanity at all costs. He looked at the room's ceiling. Even after centuries, it still follows its purpose. The team rushed back toward the way they came, hoping to escape before the ship fully woke. But when they reached the main corridor, the giant steel door had sealed shut. It looked like it was never meant to open again. They tried cutting tools. No effect. They tried force. Pointless. One officer cried, Commander, we are trapped. Vrax took a slow breath. Calm down. There must be another exit. Humans always build more than one way out. But deep inside, he wasn't sure. This ship didn't feel like something built by humans. It felt like something built to defend humans. And it was preparing to defend. Right now. From the darkness down the hall, a new sound began. Not footsteps. Not machines. A voice. Low. Cold. Powerful. Leave this vessel. Every officer froze. The voice spoke again, louder. Leave before I remove you. But the door behind them remained sealed. And the footsteps began again. Thud. 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 Something massive was coming. Something made by humans. Something built to destroy invaders. The Zonar team realized the truth. This ship was not abandoned. It was guarding something. Or someone. And now, it wanted them gone. The footsteps grew louder as Commander Vrax and his team pressed themselves against the wall of the sealed corridor. The metal floor shook gently every time the sound echoed. Whatever was coming was not small. And not slow. One officer whispered shakily, Commander, that voice, it sounded human. Vrax shook his head. No human is alive on this ship. But what if? No, Vrax repeated firmly. But his voice was thin. Even he did not believe his words fully. Something about the voice felt real, filled with warning, filled with purpose. It felt old, but alive. The ship lights flickered again, then steadied. The long corridor ahead remained dark. Vrax raised his hand. Move. Quietly. They hurried down another side passage, trying to stay away from the sound. But the ship seemed to breathe around them. Every wall vibrated. Every ceiling panel hummed as power rushed through the giant vessel. Something ancient had awakened, and it was watching them. The team reached a wide chamber with a broken door hanging from its hinges. It looked like something had ripped it open from the inside. What could break a door like this? An officer asked. Vrax stepped closer. The metal edges were twisted, melted in some spots, and torn in others. This wasn't done with weapons, he said. This was done by strength. Inside the chamber, they found smashed consoles, old human furniture, and a cracked main screen. Dust lay thick on the floor. At the far end of the room, a glowing blue device beeped softly. A recording node. The team froze. Commander, this might show what happened here, an officer said. Vrax nodded. Play it. The recording flickered to life. A human man appeared on the screen. Tired, bleeding, leaning against a wall. His uniform was torn, and his face was pale. His eyes looked tired, but sharp, like he had seen too much and had no strength left to hide it. This is Commander Isaac Hale of the Terran Defense Fleet, he spoke slowly, struggling for breath. The Zonar crew leaned in, stunned. A living human? Or a final message? Hale continued. If you are not human, then you must understand. You are in danger. Vrax exchanged glances with his officers, but no one spoke. The human wiped blood from his mouth and kept talking. This battleship was never meant to drift. It was designed to be a last hope in a war we should have lost. He coughed hard, then whispered. We didn't lose. Hale turned the recording device to show the room around him. The walls had the same claw marks the sonar team saw earlier. Deep, wide, terrifying. Something boarded us during the war, Hale said. A creature engineered to tear ships apart. We captured it, but it cost us our crew. He swallowed painfully. To stop it, we activated the Guardian protocol. Vrax felt a cold chill crawl up his back. Guardian. The human looked directly into the recorder. The Guardian was created to protect the ship. It reacts to anything not human. It destroys intruders without hesitation. One officer whispered, "That must be the thing walking around the ship." Vrax didn't answer. Hale continued, "We locked the creature in the lower decks, but the Guardian misread our signals during the fight. It treated the entire crew as a threat." The sonar team stared in disbelief. "It hunted us," Hale whispered. "One by one." Isaac Hale leaned closer to the recorder. His eyes were empty, filled with pain and regret. "If you found this ship drifting, it means the Guardian still lives. It does not tire. It does not stop. It does not forgive." He pulled out a small metal device from his pocket, an override key, or what looked like one. "This is the only tool that could shut the Guardian down, but it requires a human's touch." The key slipped from his bloody fingers and hit the floor. "I didn't make it in time," Hale said weakly. "I tried to stop it, but the Guardian completed its mission." He leaned back, body shaking. "I am the last survivor, and soon, I won't survive either." The screen flickered as his breathing slowed. Hale whispered his final words. "If you are not human, leave. Leave now. The Guardian will not stop. This ship will not let you go." The recording ended. Silence filled the room. A loud metallic groan echoed through the chamber suddenly, making everyone jump. Then, thud. A heavy footstep. Another. Then another. Coming closer. The walls flickered with red warning lights. A deep voice vibrated through the room. Non-human presence confirmed. Engaging defense protocol. Vrax felt his heart drop. That thing. It's coming. The officers looked around desperately for a way out. A small panel on the side wall blinked with a faint light. A maintenance tunnel. Just big enough for one at a time. "Through there!" Vrax shouted. They rushed toward the tunnel as the footsteps grew louder. Slow, steady, unstoppable. Just before Vrax entered, he looked back. A massive shadow appeared at the end of the corridor. Oh, broad. Shaped like a human, but made of solid metal. Two glowing red eyes stared through the darkness. The Guardian had found them. The maintenance tunnel was narrow and dark, barely wide enough for one officer at a time. The metal walls were so tight that every breath felt heavy and sharp. Commander Vrax pushed his team forward. "Hurry," he whispered. "Do not stop." Behind them, the corridor shook with every slow, thunderous thud. The Guardian was coming. Vrax crawled through the tunnel last, keeping his weapon pointed behind him, though he knew it would be useless. Nothing they carried could stop something built by humans to end wars. "Commander, how big is it?" one officer whispered ahead. Vrax didn't answer. In his mind, he replayed the image he had seen. A tall metal shape, human-like but gigantic, with glowing red eyes that cut through darkness like blades. That was enough. The team reached the end of the tunnel and dropped into a dim, circular room. Pipes lined the walls, and steam leaked from broken vents. One officer wiped sweat from his face. "Where are we?" "A lower engineering deck," Vrax said. He didn't know for sure, but he didn't want fear to spread. Even so, the silence of the room felt heavy, as if the ship itself were watching them. Then the lights flickered again. "Red. Always red." "Commander," another officer whispered. "The ship knows where we are." A heavy metal door on the right slid open by itself, revealing another hallway. "We go there," Vrax said. "But Commander, what if it's a trap?" "It is all a trap," Vrax replied quietly. "This ship was built to trap us." The team stepped into the hallway, weapons shaking in their hands. The ship groaned again as power increased. Even the air felt thicker, pressing against their skin. Behind them, a deep metallic voice echoed through the tunnels. "Movement detected." The officers froze. Then the ship added, "Tracking." The lights brightened. "He knows exactly where we are," an officer whispered. Vrax clenched his teeth. "Then we keep moving." The hallway led to a massive chamber with metal beams reaching up into darkness. In the center was a pillar glowing faint blue. A power core. Still running. Still feeding the entire battleship. "How is this ship still alive after centuries?" an officer asked. "Human engineering," Vrax said. "More advanced than anything we expected." They spread out cautiously. The floor was covered in old scorch marks and deep dents. Signs of a past battle. Something had fought here. Something strong enough to bend steel. An officer knelt near a melted panel. "Commander, this wasn't done by a weapon. It looks like claws." Before Vrax could respond, thud, thud, thud. The Guardian was getting closer again. And this time, the floor shook harder. The chamber lights dimmed, then turned bright. A back door slid open, and a shadow stepped in. The Guardian. It was massive, almost 3 times taller than any Zonar officer. Its body was made of black metal plates, shaped like armor but impossibly thick. 2 glowing red eyes burned beneath a helmet-like head. It was built like a human soldier, but stronger than any living creature. And it moved with slow, perfect control. The Guardian scanned the room. Its voice echoed. Non-human presence confirmed. One officer panicked and fired his weapon. The laser beam hit the Guardian's chest. And vanished. Not deflected. Not bounced. It simply disappeared into the dark armor. The Guardian turned its head toward the shooter. Hostile action detected. Before the officer could step back, the Guardian crossed half the room in a single heavy step. It grabbed the officer by the chest armor and lifted him like a child's toy. "No!" another officer screamed. The Guardian squeezed. There was a loud crunch, and the officer went limp. The Guardian dropped the body without a sound. "Move!" Vrax shouted. The rest of the team sprinted toward another exit. The Guardian did not rush. It walked slowly, confidently, because it knew they could not escape. Every step shook the chamber. Every thud meant one thing. It was coming. The team ran through a side hallway and down a flight of stairs. Vrax pushed everyone ahead. "Do not look back," he shouted. But he made the mistake himself. At the top of the stairs, the Guardian appeared. Its red eyes locked on him. It began to descend, one slow step at a time, and the stairs trembled under its weight. At the bottom of the stairs, something glinted on the ground. Vrax stopped and picked it up. A small metal device. A key. He recognized it instantly. It was the same object the human commander Isaac Hale dropped in the recording. "The override key," Vrax whispered. One officer pointed. "Commander, maybe that can stop it." But Vrax stared at the device. Hale had said only a human could activate it. That meant the Zonar couldn't use it. Vrax tightened his grip on the useless key. "No, this cannot save us." Another thunderous thud shook the hallway as the Guardian approached. The red lights burned brighter, and the ship's voice spoke again. Elimination protocol engaged. The hunt had begun. The corridor shook again as the Guardian's steps echoed through the ship. Commander Vrax and the remaining officers ran down the narrow hallway, turning corners without knowing where they led. The override key, small, cold, and useless to them, remained clenched tightly in Vrax's hand. "Commander," one officer gasped, "we need a plan. We cannot keep running." Vrax didn't answer, because he knew the truth. Running was the only thing keeping them alive. The Guardian did not rush. It walked with slow, heavy confidence, always knowing exactly where its prey was. Every thud brought it closer. Every vibration followed them like a heartbeat of steel. But then something unexpected happened. The floor suddenly lifted beneath their feet. The ship was moving them. The team stumbled as a low rumble filled the air. Panels on the walls slid open, lights shifted, and the corridor began to change shape. "Commander," an officer cried, "the ship is guiding us." Vrax looked around. The hallways were moving, not like machines, but like something alive, closing doors behind them, opening ones ahead, forcing them deeper inside the battleship. "This vessel does not want us to escape," he said. No one argued. The ship steered them into a wide circular chamber. The door slammed shut behind them, and the lights, bright white this time, flooded the room. "What is this place?" one officer whispered. Vrax stepped forward slowly. "This looks like a command archive." Rows of metal cabinets, screens, consoles, and sealed cases filled the room. Dust covered many surfaces, but others looked recently disturbed, as if someone or something had been here not long ago. A large central console flickered to life when Vrax approached. Human text scrolled across it. The screen displayed several old logs. Most were locked, but one folder blinked with a soft green light. A message above it read, "Mission record. Open access." Vrax hesitated. "Should I open it?" An officer nodded slowly. "Commander, the ship opened this room for us. Maybe it wants us to see. Or maybe it wanted them to understand why it was about to kill them." Vrax touched the screen. Images, videos, and text filled the display. The story of the battleship unfolded before their eyes. The ship wasn't just any vessel. It was called Titan 39, a human warship built during the Great Void War, a conflict the Zonar Empire had never heard of. The logs revealed massive battles against an unknown enemy, far deadlier than anything in Zonar history. Humans fought alone. Humans survived alone. Humans built horrors to protect themselves. One log caught Vrax's attention. Guardian Program. Final Phase. He opened it. A human scientist appeared in the recording, standing beside a huge metal frame shaped like a giant armored soldier. "Our last hope," the scientist said. "The Guardian is not a machine. It is a protector. Thinks. It adapts. And it does not stop." The woman's voice trembled slightly. "Once the program starts, nothing non-human can remain on this vessel. The Guardian will hunt without mercy. Even if the crew falls, it will continue." The screen changed to show Titan 39 leaving Earth with hundreds of armor pods, weapons, and biological defenses. The ship was meant to be humanity's final shield if the war reached their homeworld. One officer whispered, "Humans were preparing to be wiped out." "No," Vrax said. "They were preparing to make sure they could never be wiped out." The next log was more disturbing. Human commanders discussed a last option, an emergency plan if the Guardian failed. A weapon deep inside the ship. A weapon designed to break stars. The text on the screen read, "The Helios Chamber. Do not open." Vrax stared at the description, horrified. "This ship can destroy entire empires." The officers stepped back in fear. "Commander, humans built this," one whispered. "Why would such a small species need this power?" Vrax didn't speak for a moment. His voice was low when it finally came. "Because their enemies were even stronger. Humans did what they needed to survive." He looked around at the old consoles, the damaged walls, and the silent armor pods stored above. "But the most frightening thing," Vrax said, "is that they built all of this and still never used it." The officers understood the meaning. Humans had terrifying strength, but even greater restraint. The lights suddenly flickered. The room shook. The Guardian was near. Very near. "Commander!" an officer yelled. "We need to escape." Vrax grabbed the override key tightly. The doors opened on the far side of the room. Slowly, as if the ship was forcing them toward something else. The Guardian's voice echoed from the hallway. "Intruders detected. Approaching." Its steps shook dust from the ceiling. Another officer shouted, "Commander, what was the real mission of this ship?" Vrax looked at the glowing logs. "Titan 39 was not built to attack," he said. "It was built to wait." "Wait for what?" the officer asked. Vrax turned toward the dark hallway, where the red glow of the Guardian's eyes began to appear. "Humans believed the enemy would return someday," he said, "and they left this ship drifting as a warning to anyone who finds it." The Guardian stepped into the room. Its voice was cold. "Elimination sequence activated." The truth hit the Zonar team. They were not inside a dead ship. They were inside a human message. A message written in steel, in power, in fear. Humans are never truly defeated. The Guardian entered the command archive like a giant shadow of metal and death. Its red eyes glowed brighter than ever, filling the circular room with a cold crimson light. Commander Vrax and his remaining officers backed away slowly until they pressed against the far wall. Thud. Another step. The floor shook. The Guardian spoke. Termination in progress. There was no anger in its tone. No emotion. It was simply doing the job humans built it for. Commander, an officer whispered, voice cracking, there is no escape. The ship won't let us out. Vrax held the override key tightly. It felt heavier now, as if carrying the weight of all the dead humans from the old war. A key meant to stop the Guardian. A key only a human could use. Vrax whispered back, we are not trying to escape. Not now. He raised the key toward a wall console. Commander, that won't work. I know, Vrax said, but I need the ship to react. When he touched the key to the console, sparks jumped out. The ship's lights flickered wildly. Red, blue, red again. The Guardian stopped moving. For the first time, it hesitated. A small hum ran through the walls, like the ship was thinking. Then, override attempt detected. User not human. The Guardian's steps resumed. Vrax lowered the key. Now we know the ship still recognizes human command. But that does not help us, an officer said. No, Vrax replied softly. But maybe it helps our empire. Vrax grabbed his wrist device, opened the probe channel, and connected it directly to the ship's central console. What are you doing? An officer asked. Sending everything we found, Vrax said. The logs, the videos, the Guardian's activation, the weapon plans, all of it. But the Guardian will kill us before the upload finishes. Vrax shook his head. This ship wants us to understand something. The fact it led us to this archive means it wanted someone to see its history. Someone who would carry the message home. The officer swallowed. A warning. Yes, Vrax said. A warning. The console showed the upload progress. 12%, 18%, 27%. The Guardian approached slowly. It did not rush. It knew time was on its side. One officer raised his weapon again. Commander, we have to fight. No, Vrax snapped. You cannot fight this thing. It is stronger than entire armies. The Guardian lifted an arm, its hand large enough to crush a skull effortlessly. Commander, another officer shouted. The upload is only at 45%. Vrax stood firm in front of the console. Keep it running. Something strange happened then. The Guardian didn't attack immediately. Instead, it lowered its head slightly, as if studying them. Its red eyes dimmed for a brief second. Then it spoke. You were warned. It reached for one officer. The officer screamed and disappeared in its grip. The Guardian tossed the body aside like a tool that had served no purpose. The progress bar climbed. 58%. 69%. Vrax stepped directly between the Guardian and the console. The Guardian stared down at him. Commander, move, an officer cried. No, Vrax said calmly. Our empire must know. The Guardian's voice echoed. Non-human life must be removed. Its metal fist rose. The surviving officer watched the progress bar with shaking hands. 83%, 91%, 97%, 100%. The console beeped. Upload complete. Vrax let out a long breath. Good. The Guardian brought its fist down. Crash. The console exploded. Sparks shot across the room. The Guardian grabbed Vrax by the chest and lifted him into the air. Commander! The last officer screamed. Vrax didn't struggle. He looked straight into the glowing eyes. Your message is sent, he whispered. The Guardian crushed him. The officer ran. Far away, above the drifting battleship, a small Zonar probe drone blinked as it received the final data packet. When the upload reached 100%, the probe detached from the battleship automatically. It turned its thrusters, curved through space, and accelerated towards Zonar territory. Behind it, the battleship's massive shape drifted silently once more, like a sleeping titan. Inside, the Guardian walked the halls alone again, returning to its endless patrol, waiting for the next intruder, or the next enemy, or the next empire foolish enough to board it. Days later, in the shining capital of the Zonar Empire, the probe report arrived in the High Council chamber. Dozens of leaders gathered. They watched the human logs, the warnings, the scientists describing the Guardian, the images of dead humans, the weapon plans for the Helios chamber, and finally, the recording of Commander Vrax standing before the Guardian, moments before his death. When the message ended, the room was silent. No one breathed. Then the High Chancellor spoke in a trembling voice. "Humans built this?" Another council member whispered, "If they made one Guardian, they could make many." A third asked quietly, "If this ship was abandoned, how many more did they create?" Someone else said the words no one wanted to hear. "What if humans are not extinct?" The room erupted in panic. If humans were alive, if humans returned, if humans still had ships like Titan 39, then the Zonar Empire would not survive the first day. The Chancellor gave the final order. "Send a warning to all colonies. Avoid all human ruins. Avoid all human ships. If you see anything with Terran markings, do not engage." He looked at the screen showing Titan 39 drifting in darkness. Because humanity is the one species we cannot fight. The capital of the Zonar Empire pulsed with alarm lights. Every screen across the High Council chamber repeated the same warning. Do not provoke humanity. But even as fear spread across the Empire, one voice remained unheard. The voice of the last surviving officer from Titan 39. He had escaped through the ship's lower drainage system, the only space the Guardian had not sealed. He drifted for hours inside a small escape pod until a patrol ship recovered him. Now he stood before the council, exhausted, pale, and shaking. "What did you see?" the High Chancellor demanded. The officer swallowed hard. "I saw something that should not exist." "Speak." The officer's voice trembled as he continued. The Guardian looked at Commander Vrax before killing him. It judged him. The room fell silent. It wasn't rage. It wasn't blind killing. It was like it understood everything we did, from the moment we entered the ship. A council member scoffed. "Impossible. A construct cannot." "It can," the officer snapped, tears forming in his eyes. "It watched us, calculated every step we took, and right before it crushed the commander." He paused, shaking as he spoke. It spoke to him. The room froze. "What did it say?" the Chancellor asked. The officer whispered, "Tell your empire, humanity remembers." The chamber shook with gasps and murmurs. News of Titan 39 spread faster than light. Among the Zonar worlds, panic took physical form. Weapons were locked away. Exploration ships were recalled. Even the military fleet was ordered to remain inside safe borders. Nobody wanted to be the next intruder on a human ship. Children whispered stories about red-eyed metal soldiers. Soldiers feared shadows in the halls at night. Leaders held secret meetings, asking the same question. If humans built Guardians, where are the humans now? Some believed humans died long ago. Some believed they fled the galaxy. Some believed they slept, waiting for the right moment to return. But all agreed on one thing. Whatever humans fought in the Great Void War, they survived. And whatever they built still protects them. Far from the Zonar capital, Titan 39 drifted alone in the silent dark, cold and still, like a tomb made of metal. Then, without warning, the ship's engines hummed softly. Not enough to travel. Just enough to adjust its position, pointing its massive hull toward an unknown region of space. Inside, the Guardian marched through the ship's halls, its heavy steps echoing through every deck. Thud, thud, thud. It returned to the core chamber, where the last human commander had died centuries ago. Before the Guardian stood a dark console with a single blinking light. A message, centuries old, waited to be played. The Guardian placed its metal hand on the panel. The message activated. Commander Isaac Hale's recorded face appeared again, flickering through static. "Guardian," he whispered in the recording. "If the enemy returns, you know what to do." The screen shut off. The Guardian stood still, the red glow of its eyes brightening. It turned its head toward the stars outside, and waited. Back in the Zonar capital, Panic was turning into desperate debate. We should destroy the ship. No. If we attack it, what if humans detect our aggression? We must learn more. Are you mad? Those who tried are dead. One council member slammed a data pad onto the table. There is another problem, he shouted. If Titan 39 exists, then there may be dozens more. Hundreds. The room went silent. Everyone imagined an entire fleet of sleeping human battleships with guardians inside. Ships floating quietly across the galaxy, waiting for intruders. The Chancellor rubbed his temples. This entire time, we thought humans were weak. The room listened. But their strength was not weapons. Their strength was preparing for wars even their enemies could not imagine. Suddenly, alarms blared. A new signal filled the council chamber. A transmission. Not from the Zonar Empire. Not from any known species. But from Titan 39. The screen displayed human text translated automatically. Message for all non-human species. The Chancellor stepped back. This is not possible. That ship has no living crew. But the message played anyway. Not a video, just a voice. A deep, calm human voice. A voice from centuries ago. If you are hearing this, humanity has not returned. But our creations remain. Do not search for our worlds. Do not enter our vessels. Do not disturb our wars. Because even in silence, the voice deepened. We remember everything. The message ended. The chamber stayed silent for nearly a full minute. Then someone whispered the truth aloud. The message was not for us. Another replied quietly. It was for the entire galaxy. Days later, Zonar scouts reported a shocking sight. Titan 39 was no longer drifting. It had turned toward a distant star system. A place with no known life, no colonies, nothing important. The scouts approached carefully, keeping their distance. Then one of them noticed something carved across Titan 39's massive hull. Not new. Old. Very old. A message written in human lettering. To those who come after us. Be careful where you step. The scout captain whispered. Commander Vrax was right. His officer asked, right about what? He stared at the ancient human warship, glowing with red eyes deep inside. Humans were never defeated, he said. They simply left warnings for the future. And across the galaxy, every empire understood one final truth. Some ghosts never fade. Some wars never end. And humans are the last species anyone should ever provoke.